Hello, Bashar.
And to you, good day.
I have a question about addiction.
Yes.
I've heard that addiction can be stemmed from kind of entities
No.
in
No.
the human energy field.
No.
No?
Where's the responsibility there?
I know that was kind of my question. Ultimately.
Thank you. Addiction comes from a belief in lack of self-empowerment, which creates a sensation of emptiness that then the consciousness attempts to fill with anything it can. However, it comes from also a denial of that sense of disempowerment, and therefore, instead of actually knowing that the connection is never left to your source of self-empowerment, you are left to believe that you are disconnected. And since you cannot, through the denial, find a way to feel the connection, you attempt to fill that emptiness with things that then dull your awareness of the disconnection. Mm-hmm. You understand?
That makes sense. I mean, I have a couple who psychic sensitive friends who say like if you drink or do drugs, you expand yourself, and you open yourself up to kind of negative parasitic.
That's different, because you've already created the energy field and you've already created the vibration that may, in a sense, then match the energy of other entities who may be operating on a similar level and attracting yourselves to each other, so to speak. But it's not, in a sense, parasitic in the way that you mean it. It's simply the idea that it's like vibration to like vibration.
Okay.
You understand? If you find the idea of the belief and let it go and suddenly understand that you are connected to your source of empowerment, you will automatically break that link. And when you're not operating on the same wavelength, something operating on that low wavelength can no longer find you. You become invisible to them. You understand?
Interesting, yes.
But it's not like they're causing it.
No.
You're the one that's creating it within yourself, and then you're just hanging around with like-minded buddies.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yes.
I have one more question. I live in California by the beach.
All right.
The last few times I've been there, walked along the shore, there's been hundreds of like dead bees, or some of them half alive.
Yes.
Just curious if there's any insight you can provide. I
Well,
don't
your
know.
scientists are already to some degree aware that there are certain imbalances that you've created in nature through pollution, through viral contamination, and a few other sources that are in many ways causing a deconstruction of the natural connective order. So you're seeing the results of all of that.
Yeah, and I didn't know like how they wound up at the beach. It's pretty random, I thought.
Well, there are certain kinds of air patterns and electromagnetic patterns on your planet that once that they have been affected in a certain way, they can no longer navigate correctly along those electromagnetic lines and may wind up in a variety of different places they didn't intend to go because they're following different kinds of magnetic pattern lines on your planet. Yes?
Yes.
That they think are the correct ones that aren't because their senses have been thrown off.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you. And I have one yes or no question.
Yes.
My dad, he thinks the Earth is flat. Is the Earth flat? Yes or no?
He thinks the Earth is flat.
Yeah, that whole, I don't know, the theories of the flat Earth.
No disrespect intended, but you could ask him that if he looks in the mirror, does his head appear flat? Or is it round?
Round.
All right. Now, the idea of a flat Earth, and that which seems to be gaining so much more popularity on your planet, is a distortion of perspective and perception, knowing that there are different dimensions. 0 dimension, 1 dimension, 2 dimension, 3 dimension, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so on. The fact that you may be expanding consciousness may be allowing you to perceive that there are realities in which you do experience two-dimensionality. And therefore they may assume when they see that kind of perception overlaid on your reality, and they think about the idea of the earth, they may see it or perceive that it could be perceived or experienced as flat. But that's not the dimension you're in. That's not the way you're experiencing it. In your dimension, the earth is a globe, is a ball, is a sphere. But the idea is that as your senses extend beyond your dimension, it will extend in both directions, up and down, and they may perceive an interpretation that allows them to experience the earth from another dimensional point of view, such as the second dimension, which makes it seem flat. That's what's happening, and they're not understanding that it's simply a matter of overlapping perceptions of different dimensional realities. It's not what's happening in your dimension physically. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense.
All right.
Thank you.
And to go back a little bit to the first conversation about the so-called idea of parasitic involvement, you sum it up on your planet with a very old-fashioned phrase. Misery loves company.
Right.
Because they reinforce the negative for each other. That's another technique of the structure of negative beliefs, is that you attract others with negative beliefs to reinforce the negative beliefs within you as you reinforce it within them, so that neither of you will be prone to know that there is a way to change those negative beliefs.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so it's all, it connects.
That's what you mean by the parasitic nature.
So the root is the belief.
Yes, of course, it always is. Because only by defining something to be true can you actually create or generate any kind of an experience from there. You cannot have feelings in a vacuum. You cannot have thoughts in a vacuum. You cannot have behavior in a vacuum. If you don't have a definition for something, you don't know how to feel, you don't know what to think, you don't know how to act. Mm-hmm. It all starts with the definition that you believe is true.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right?
All right. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Hello, Bashar.
And to you, good day.
Thank you very much for sharing with us.
And you as well.
I'd like to talk about my mantis connections.
Mantis. Yes.
Particularly with one mantis that I've named Thomas.
Well, all right.
Which I've looked up the definition of Thomas, and it means twin.
All right.
I'd like to know what time that Thomas lives in and where he lives, what plane he lives on, and learn more about him.
They are projections of sixth density entities.
Okay.
That have been given organizational supervision over the hybridization agenda, among other things.
Okay.
To help direct it in the course that it needs to go, since the Greys themselves sacrificed their ability to feel anything at all in the beginning. They needed someone to watch over them.
Okay.
And in a lot of encounters with the Greys, and even with some of the mantids, you will find that many of those encounters are representative of an encounter between a portion of consciousness that looks one way in one reality, such as you, and a portion of consciousness that looks another way in another reality, such as a Grey or a mantis. So very often in the encounters, you're actually interacting with another version of yourself.
Okay.
Hence the twin idea.
Okay. I experience mudras,
Yes.
and in some instances, what are like martial arts forms
Yes,
that I do throughout my apartment.
Yes.
And sometimes I can do them with my eyes closed.
Yes.
Depending on
Well, you're following energy lines. You're following energy flow. Your body is responding to how energy is flowing through you.
Okay. What are some of the those expressions? What are some of the physical or the creations that are brought about from it that serves humanity? In what ways?
An acceleration of synchronicity.
Okay.
More of an awareness by matching the frequency at the rate at which reality is created by your consciousness to be able to see the structure of existence itself more clearly.
Okay.
Are some of the benefits that come from aligning with those kinds of energy flows.
Okay. And part of the experience I have is much more electrical charge.
Yes.
Like I'm feeling it right now. I'm shaking from it.
Yes. We'll just
and-
flow it through you
Okay.
by doing what you need to do that is representative of your passion.
Okay.
Because again, the idea is that the energy doesn't need to stay in you. You need to become transparent to it and superconductive to it so it flows through you more efficiently. Because that's one of the other things that happens when you align with these kinds of things, is that you experience more of the path of least resistance.
Okay. So my shaking is just that, it's just evidence of that resistance. Okay.
Yes, of a natural resistance to the idea that it's not actually flowing through you right now as fast as it could be.
Right. And that's what I experience.
Yes. Does that help?
Yeah, that helps a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Bashar.
And a you good day.
Thank you. Basically, I just recently didn't like the story of my life.
Oh, all right. Are you going to then write a new story?
I am. I'm actually writing the story right now.
How exciting.
I moved to Phoenix,
Oh, all right.
got a new job.
Yes.
Everything in my life is different than it was a few months ago.
Congratulations.
Nothing looks the same.
Congratulations. Moving to Phoenix and rising from the ashes.
But my question is
Yes.
because you talk about the two different trains,
Yes.
And-
Well, there's more than two, but go on.
right? Or the parallel realities, basically.
Yes,
and
yes,
you
yes.
started with the 9 planets and things like that.
Yes.
Since I've changed my story,
Yes.
changed my surroundings completely.
You're not the same person.
Okay. I guess that's kind of what I
Literally.
was going to ask. Yes.
Literally, not the same person moment to moment to moment, which means that the new person you are has whatever history you define to be true.
Okay. Okay. And I feel that. I feel
There you
that
go.
things have changed.
Yes.
And I see the perspective of life differently.
You are in a state where you are more easily capable of breaking what is called continuity.
Okay. I do have to mention, too, I would like to thank Joy because the synchronicity of she gave me the question. So,
All right. Well, thank you all for your synchronicities.
yeah.
It's an orchestration.
The other question I had, just a little background as far as when I was a kid, I had near-death experience.
How exciting!
It was because it changed me.
Well, yes, again.
Yeah, it made me search and find, what was really out there because I
Yes.
had that experience of
Which
knowing.
is why you chose to have that.
Right. But just in the last 10 years, I've had numerous medical issues. I've had
How exciting!
pulmonary embolisms,
Ooh,
at least 2,
wow.
2 bowel obstructions,
Oh my goodness.
and just recently in December,
Are you trying to get back there?
No. I don't know. But in December, I was diagnosed with cancer.
Oh, all right. That's exciting too.
Yeah. But my whole thing is I'm trying to cope with the limiting belief of
Yes.
I believe that I may have the cancer, but the cancer
All
does
right.
not have me.
Yes.
So that is my
So you
mantra.
can use it however you need to use it
Right.
as a teaching tool, as a learning tool.
But-
What, again, since you seem to be doing that a lot, that seems to be the way in which you choose to learn things, by giving yourself things that force you to look at things in a new way.
Yeah.
Since you're using it that way, since you've been using it that way, you can look at this as yet one more form of that. What would you not be doing if you didn't have that experience?
I don't know. I think that it's going to lead me to something else.
Oh, well, of course.
And
So then
there's a
can
reason
you-
why I'm having the experience.
Yes. Can you own and contain it in that way, knowing that it's serving you that way?
I can't,
And that when it no longer serves you, it won't be there? Because you will be a different person then who never had it?
yeah.
Are you sure? Can you wrap your mind around the 13th step?
Right now it's a struggle because I should be doing like chemotherapy and doing bone marrow tests and stuff like that.
All
but I
right.
have a belief that
Yes.
I have a negative belief against it.
All right.
I don't know that the
make
chemotherapy
sure-
would really serve me.
Make sure that you are clear about your beliefs. Because we understand that many of you prefer to do things in a more natural way, and in general, that is generally best for you. But if you have a belief system that those things will actually work for you, don't ignore them.
Okay.
You have to be honest about your belief, because it may be teaching you something to go down that path and learn it that way, without necessarily always just automatically shutting a door that might serve you just because you don't want it to be the way in which something will work for you, because you think you should be being more spiritual than that.
So
Sometimes the most spiritual thing to do is to give over to the actual belief system that will guide you through the process you need to go through. Not saying you have to do it one way or another, but just make sure you are clear about why you are saying you don't want to do it that way. Because if you examine your beliefs, you may find that there is a combination of things you can do, some of this, a little of that, that may actually be your true path between all the different decisions, all the different choices.
Okay.
So don't ignore, but make sure you are clear about what is true for you and what isn't. And that you're not labeling something as untrue just because you're afraid of it. Just because you think you shouldn't have to do it that way. That's all we're saying.
So is my belief strong enough to?
It's not about strong enough. It's about what you know to be true for you. It's about clarity. Is it clear enough? That's what we're saying.
Okay.
So use this time to examine your beliefs, see what conclusions you come to when you are willing to open up to allowing all choices to be equally valid, so that you can choose what you truly prefer without invalidating what you don't prefer. And that will guide you. That energy state will guide you.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah.
That's your process right now.
Okay. Thank you.
And remember that death is your friend. You've used it many times to help you change course.
I don't think I'm afraid of it. I've stared at it a few times. So.
Exactly. So there's no reason to be afraid now, is what we're saying. No matter what this leads to, there's no reason to be afraid, because you're familiar with the territory. Yes?
That makes sense.
All right. And what you're doing right now is letting go of negative beliefs through the chemistry of your tears. You follow? Every time you hold on to a negative belief, or you change yourself and let go of old ideas, before, when you held on to the idea, when you had the idea, you always create a chemical component, a chemical reflection in your body of an energetic belief. Once you change and let go of an old belief, you actually have to release the chemical constituent that went along with that belief, and more often than not, most of you do it through your tears. You're washing the chemical reflection of the negative belief out of your body, literally.
Well, it's a release. It feels good.
Exactly. That's why it feels good, because you feel lighter after doing it, because you actually have dropped things that are no longer relevant for you.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does. It's crystal. Yeah.
All right.
It really does.
And please always remember that as you go on this journey, whatever it is you know you're all about, whatever it is you know you can do, remind yourself, you can, sir. You can, sir. You understand?
Yeah.
I can, sir.
Yes.
I can be who I prefer to be. I can, sir. Yes?
Yes. I appreciate that.
You are very welcome, and you're not alone. You're having help with this from your guides and many other beings. You're never alone on this journey, ever. You're walking hand in hand with others.
Okay. Sorry.
No. There's no need to apologize. You expressed yourself. It's beautiful. All right?
Yeah.
All right. Sweet dreams.
Can, sir. You can, sir. I got it.
And so can you, sir.
Okay.
Good day.
Thank you, Bashar.
Hello, Tadeo.
Nania.
So we have a few questions from our Ustream listeners.
Yes.
The first one is, what is your concept of forgiveness?
Forgiveness is a centering in gratitude and appreciation for who you are and all that you have experienced, and knowing that you are as powerful as you need to be to manifest whatever you need without having to hurt yourself or anyone else in the process. And it is gratitude and appreciation for that realization and letting go of things that do not serve you or allow you to serve others.
So this whole idea with forgiveness, like I think sometimes people are angry at other people.
Yes.
And then they have to find a place where they forgive the other person.
But they have to forgive themselves, because mostly what they're angry at is themselves.
And the reason that we get angry at ourselves, which then ends up being projected onto someone else.
Yes, which doesn't excuse that they may have actually done something negative. That's not what we're saying.
Okay.
But what we're saying is anyone that reacts negatively in that way has an issue that that person obviously triggered within them. And therefore, they are angry within themselves that that has come up and that that person has been able to actually push that button, that the button even exists. So forgiveness involves the idea of acknowledgement and awareness that that negative belief is within yourself and letting that go, and then also having the compassion and empathy to recognize that this person may have done you a service by bringing that to your attention within yourself so that you no longer have to have that anger at yourself for containing something you thought you shouldn't contain but did.
Also, it seems like it comes down to discernment. Like I've personally experienced, and I'm sure others have too, the idea that you get angry at yourself for not discerning
Yes.
that another person will choose a negative behavior
Whatever the
towards
reason
you.
is that's imposed upon the structure, it's still the same structure.
So
You're
what-
angry at yourself.
Right. So that idea of being angry at the self
Yes.
for not discerning correctly, why does that seem so threatening to us?
Well, because again, you are taught other beliefs about how you are supposed to appear successful, how you are supposed to appear smart, how you're not supposed to allow yourself to get taken advantage of, how you're supposed to this and supposed to that and supposed to this and supposed to that. And therefore, eventually you realize that all these different supposed tos have happened, and now you're very angry with yourself for allowing all these things that weren't supposed to happen. Because you have this idea that they're not supposed to happen, when in fact, obviously, they needed to happen to point out that you needed to let go of those beliefs. So they were supposed to happen in order for you to actually progress and grow and mature.
Can it also be something where it's a survival issue? The idea that if you discern danger correctly, then you survive. So if your discernment isn't working correctly in your environment, can we often perceive that as being life-threatening almost?
Yes, not that it necessarily is, but because of the lack of clarity of what the belief system is, it will often key into your survival mechanism and be blown out of proportion to make you react as if you have to react that way to survive. Yes.
So that makes a lot of sense, that one of the reasons that people take it so hard when they're tricked by another person or they feel that they've made a poor choice, didn't see the red flags, whatever,
Yes.
that it harkens back to our orientation of ourself in the world and in the universe.
Yes.
And the idea that you can feel disoriented if things turn out to be quite a bit different than you think
Yes,
they are.
although that's a little different. But again, remember that when you go back into that reaction, it's going to key into all sorts of negative belief issues like I'm not worthy, I'm not deserving. And by having this experience and the inability to discern what would have prevented that experience from happening, it reinforces the whole issue that it's tapping into. I'm not worthy, I'm not deserving. This is something that I can't survive because it's annihilating my sense of self-worth. It's reinforcing the idea that I'm no good, I don't belong, so on and so forth. It's tapping into all of that and magnifying all of that. So it becomes this jumble of negative belief system reinforcement that can escalate to the point where it feels like a survival issue.
And so the way out of that, now that we've brought that to light,
Is to take responsibility for your particular reaction, regardless of what another person might have chosen to do, so that you can stop the cascade effect and realize that you don't necessarily need to react. You have something that you can examine within you and find out whether it's true or not, or whether it actually leads you to an understanding or a recognition of a belief that you need to let go of, and therefore you can explore it in a positive way.
I'm just wondering if there's sort of a quick self-reminder at that point, because I've seen this happen to so many people that it can really throw you off when
I
that
create
happens.
my reality. No one else does. I create my experience. No one else does.
So is it sort of the circuit breaker?
Yes.
It actually comes back to the circuit breaker.
Yes. Because if you remind yourself that you're creating your experience, then you can be the only one that's responsible for changing it.
Right.
So it puts you right back into self-empowerment.
So I think the circuit is, I feel such and such. I feel such and such because
I believe such and such about myself.
and I believe that because I think that it serves me.
Because I believe that it serves me.
And so
And that's
why
where
would
it
I
goes back
believe that?
to the motivational mechanism.
Why would I believe
You
that
will
serves me?
always go towards you believe will serve you. Will always move away from what you believe will not. So if you're going toward things that don't serve you, that means your motivational mechanism is tied to beliefs that allow it to operate in reverse of the way it's designed to operate in a positive way.
I've actually found with the circuit breaker that you don't even have to know the answer to the question of
Correct.
why would I believe that this serves me. All you have to
Yes.
do is acknowledge that you're doing it for what you believe to be a positive reason. So in a sense, if another person tricked you, you allowed it to happen because you believed that it would serve you, or that the choice that you were making.
Yes. And again, it doesn't condone their action, but the idea is you are learning to use it in a positive way that serves you by taking that stance, by taking that state of being, instead of assuming that you've actually been duped.
Right. So right there, you can feel the energetic shift
Exactly.
between feeling victimized to realizing that you chose an experience
Yes.
so that you could become more aware, because this is
Yes.
a place where you're learning
Yes,
things.
because
And
if you have the idea that you feel victimized, what's actually happening is that person has put you in touch with the fact that you have victim level belief systems about yourself. Again, it doesn't condone what they did, because they obviously have victim level belief systems too in order to have done what they did. But nevertheless, they put you in touch with your own, and that gives you the opportunity to remain in a positive state and deal with it in a way that will allow you to accelerate through the process of divesting yourself of those belief systems. And then that turns you into a being that can be the state of being that might actually help the other person realize they can do the same.
so when it all comes back to forgiveness now, it actually has a lot more depth, the idea of
Yes.
forgiving yourself when you recognize that at some level you were choosing this for a positive reason.
Yes.
And also recognizing that the other person was, in a sense, a person in your play, in your drama,
Yes.
and that they were making themselves available for that, regardless of
Yes.
whether they had negative intention or not.
Remember that when everyone is self-empowered, there will be no one to answer the call to reinforce belief in victimhood. You understand?
Yes.
Victims in that sense will simply be isolated and get tired of playing the victim game and suddenly re-empower themselves, because that's the only example they're given. So the last victim will automatically empower themselves when no one else is willing to play the victim game.
And that's part of what we're learning here, is not to play the victim game.
Exactly.
because we
Because
actually
you are not victims.
because we're so powerful. I mean, it's
Yes.
our consciousness that's generating
Yes.
the whole experience to begin
Exactly.
with.
So remember that when you feel powerless, you're using your power to create the feeling that you're powerless, which means you're in power. It's all about how you're using your power, not that you actually can be powerless. Anything else?
No, I think, that's a great exploration. I really appreciate that. So, if you're hungry, well, you're probably not hungry.
No. But you may all enjoy your nutrition break, and we will resume this transmission after your lunch. Thank you.
Thank you, Tessa.